I'm Greg Regan, President of the Transportation Trades Department, AFL-CIO. TTD, if you don't know us, we're the largest transportation labor federation in the country with 37 affiliated unions, including aviation unions. I'm very pleased to have with me two of the leaders of two of our affiliated unions. We have Sara Nelson with the Association of Flight Attendants and Captain Jason Ambrosi with the Airline Pilots Association. And we're also lucky to have former chairman of the T&I committee and longtime advocate for working people, Peter DeFazio, here as well. We're here to talk about how SkyWest, which is the nation's largest regional air carrier, is attempting to undermine aviation safety with an application to the Department of Transportation to operate under charter rules. As the DOT is preparing to rule on this petition, we believe that today's call is very timely. We're going to kick off the call with some brief remarks and then open it up for Q&A from everyone. But I do want to emphasize, as we're looking at the emerging and the evolving status of the U.S. aviation system, these types of attempts to find loopholes to safety regulations are really an insidious way that we are trying to undermine the safest aviation system in the world. And frankly, we've had an era here of the safest air operations in this country, and any of these types of attempts to sort of undermine what has made it so safe are really a threat to the safety all across the system. So with that, I want to turn it over here to Captain Jason Ambrosi, the president of ALPA. Jason?
Thanks to Greg and the team at TTD for organizing today's event. I'm proud that labor is united in opposition to efforts by SkyWest and others to exploit the public charter loophole and evade rigorous pilot qualification requirements for first officers. The first officer qualification law approved by Congress in 2010 and the regulations that followed were arguably the single most impactful set of safety improvements in U.S. aviation history. They mandated that all airline pilots should have the same high levels of training and experience, regardless of whether they're in the left seat or the right. SkyWest is now trying to degrade the effectiveness of those improvements and operate as a public charter, while pretending to run scheduled flights and continuing to receive public subsidies for small community service. If approved, the SkyWest scheme would gut the safety rule, make flying less safe, and reward them with taxpayer funding. Their scheme would effectively turn back the clock on our nation's unmatched safety record, and it must be stopped. It must be stopped because it would open the floodgates to others who would put profit ahead of safety, and we'll have a race to the bottom and go right back to where we were before the law was changed in 2010. And it must be stopped because it would create a different level of safety for people flying in and out of small rural communities. Let me be crystal clear. Our union fully supports measures to ensure our nation's rural and small communities have safe and reliable air transportation service. However, we will not stand idly by as SkyWest or any other airline work to degrade the safety of flight. What makes SkyWest's scheme especially outrageous is that it applied to the Department of Transportation committing to fly under one set of aviation safety regulations, but now wants permission to use less rigorous safety regulations for some of its flights when it chooses. One set of rules on a Tuesday, a different, less safe set on a Wednesday. That's not how the system is supposed to work. The SkyWest proposal is attempting to gut the rule under which regional pilots, already among the most junior, least experienced commercial aviators, gained entry into the national airline system. I began my airline career flying for a regional airline. I believe all Americans deserve safe, reliable air service, including those in small and rural communities. And ALPA stands ready to work together in collaboration with our industry partners to improve the Essential Air Service Program and incentivize flying to all parts of our great nation. We can have safe skies and serve small communities. Those are not mutually exclusive goals, and we should reject any suggestion to the contrary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to turn it over to Chairman Peter DeFazio.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Jason. I agree with everything Jason said. I just would fill in a little bit with my history. I started in the 90s to raise issues about the dearth of hours for the second seat on commuter flights. I pointed out that it took 3 times as many hours to qualify as a hairdresser in Oregon as second seat. And I didn't think that was in the least adequate. The fight drug on through various FAA bills over the years until we had the Colgan air disaster. Then Congress acted decisively with the 1,500-hour rule. We also imposed rest and duty time. The co-pilot on that flight was being paid so little, she was living in her parents' basement in Seattle, deadheaded to New Jersey, probably didn't get much rest at all, and then embarked on that tragic flight. That had to end. And Congress did end it and ended it definitively. This would roll back the clock on those three issues, on training hours, rest and duty time restrictions. I also am very concerned about what the implications are for smaller cities, rural communities, in terms of service. Yeah, we got the AAS program, and SkyWest is using that today, as are other regionals. But in order, to fly under this new status, they're going to be reducing the number of seats on these flights. And I don't think it's likely that they will be going to many of these smaller communities anymore, not offering that affordable service. They will morph in the direction of JSX, which is another company operating as a ticketed charter, and essentially be selling business class, which is not going to work for many, many people, many smaller communities, small cities. So I don't see this as a way to perpetuate the service to those cities. I don't see it as a way to perpetuate safe service to those cities. And I see it as a huge step back from one level of aviation in this country for commercial service. So this should not go forward. It's pending with DOT, and DOT should not approve this change, because if SkyWest goes, you can bet that the rest of the industry is going to follow. And we'll also have, by the way, more planes in the air. And the last thing we need is more congestion, since they'll be carrying fewer passengers, more pollution too. I don't see anything good coming of this. With that, I would I guess Greg will introduce Sara.
Thank you, Peter. And now, of course, President of AFA-CIO, Sara Nelson.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Peter and Jason. Let me start here. All of aviation labor is opposed to this scheme. We're totally united on this. Jason and I are here because we represent the people who are on the planes with passengers. We don't take a flight when we know it's not safe. And we put our lives on the line right along with the passengers when we go to work. These safety regulations that have been that have grown over the years, have been built over the years, been built off the backs of disaster, off the backs of lost lives. Each one of us can actually talk about losing people that we know, and what that resulted in, which is very strict regulations around safety. As Jason said, one level of safety for all of aviation to ensure that we can keep our promise to the traveling public that this is the safest mode of transportation, and they can be sure that when they put their lives in our hands, they are in good hands. As Peter said, this is going to put more planes in the air at a time when we are hearing from ATC that airlines are supposed to be cutting back on service and upgauging the planes in order to meet the demands of the traveling public. This scheme is only going to create a race to the bottom to avoid safety standards, to avoid standards for the working conditions that make us safe on the job. And what that will do is it will lead to a competitive environment in the Part 135 arena that we don't have our arms around, that we don't have enough safety inspectors to get our arms around, that we don't have enough air traffic controllers to be able to manage in a way that makes sense, that we don't have enough revenue for those who are leisure travelers to buy those tickets. And slowly there is an erosion of the accessibility of the freedom of flight for all Americans. This is also going to move more to those who have and those who have not. And we have moved away from that in aviation and made aviation more accessible than any other time in history for anyone who would like to fly. For all of these reasons, but fundamentally for the issues of safety, one level of safety, we are saying that it is not safe to move forward with allowing SkyWest to use this loophole to start a new business model that the rest of the industry will follow in order to compete and undermine the safety regulations that have been written in blood. It's that simple. We're totally opposed to it. We're going to stop it. And we need you to hear how serious this is. When we go to a flight and we see that something is wrong, we question whether or not that flight is safe, we don't take it. We do that for the safety of ourselves and our commitment to our families, and we do it for the commitment that we have to all of the people who are in our care on that flight. And that is the seriousness with which we are talking to you today about our opposition to this scheme and why DOT needs to disapprove this application.